Welcome to the Ground Pwned podcast, a weekly show for fans of combat sports, gaming, entertainment, and plenty more. I'm Brian Shea, online content director at Game Informer, joined by Scott Fontana, the New York Post's MMA reporter. I am back from Japan, and I finally got a full night's sleep, so that's the biggest news in my world. I may be a little out of the loop on gaming news as a result of that trip, but I did get home just in time to watch UFC 280. So where do you want to start today, Scott?
Well, I want to start with your trip, but I have to point out the fact that you sent me a message the day before the fights because you thought you were going to miss these fights by a couple hours, and then you figured out because of the time change and different time zones and different days because of you being all the way on the other side of the world that you were actually home a day in advance of the fights.
Yeah, so it's such a mind F to leave Tokyo. My plane took off in Tokyo at 4:20 p.m. on Friday, and I land in Seattle on 1 p.m. on Friday. And it's like, it just breaks your brain to basically time travel, because you take off in the late afternoon and then you land in another country that same day earlier in the day. And it's like, my brain was saying, hey, I'm going to get back on Saturday because I'm taking off on Friday afternoon out of a different country. But no, that's not the case. You lose a day going to Tokyo, but coming back, you gain a day.
That would definitely mess with me too. I have not traveled internationally. I've never left the continent of North America. So, and that includes the Caribbean, that includes Central America. It's all part of North America, right? I have never left North America, so I have no concept.
Yeah, it's
no relatable concept anyway.
It's awesome. I love traveling. I Europe, Japan. Some of my favorite trips I've ever taken are to those two. And this is another one of those great trips. I spent some nights in Osaka. I spent one night in Tokyo, and then I flew in and out of Tokyo, took the bullet train both ways, which is just a remarkable piece of transportation technology, by the way. 200 miles an hour, basically just up and down the coast of Japan. It's amazing.
That is pretty wild.
But yeah, so I got to do some cool gaming related stuff. I went to a ton of retro game stores. I went to some Pokemon card stores. I went to Super Nintendo World at Universal Studios in Osaka.
That was cool.
Yeah, it was incredible. You enter Universal Studios Japan, which is it has all these different licenses. You saw Shrek, you saw Hello Kitty, you saw Jaws, Jurassic Park, all these different Universal properties. I went on a Spider-Man ride, which was pretty cool. And I only went on 3 actual rides. 2 of them were Nintendo related, but I was thinking because we got there and we were like, all right, let's go to Nintendo World. We got over there and it was like, oh crap, it says you have to reserve a time to get in. And I tried to do that the day before and it said no times were available. And I looked at the day of and I was like, okay, well, times are available, but you can't get in until 1:30 p.m. So we were like, all right, well, let's just do that. We'll go get some lunch. I was there with my video editor, Alex. And we're like, all right, well, what do you want to do? And so we went to the Harry Potter world. So I have no real love for Harry Potter, but I was like, all right, well, there's some cool sites over there. Went over there, got some butterbeer, and just kind of chilled in Harry Potter world.
What did you think of butterbeer? I'm not a Harry Potter guy either, but I have been to Universal Studios, the Harry Potter one in Florida, and I tried it too. What did you think of it?
It's just basically cream soda with foam on top, right?
Kind of. It's been a while for me, actually. I kind of forget. That's what I was curious about.
So I didn't actually get a butterbeer because, again, I don't really have that much affinity. But right. my editor, my video editor, did, and he liked it, and he let me have a sip before he dove in, and I was like, oh, that's pretty tasty. I don't know if I could do a full cup of that, but it was pretty tasty. It was very sweet.
Yeah, it's super sweet. I don't know if I loved it either. It's been a while. My wife really likes Harry Potter, and for some reason, my youngest son also likes Harry Potter, but he really doesn't know anything about Harry Potter other than what he looks like.
So he looks like me when I was a kid.
With
joke.
A scar, though. With a scar.
Well, yeah, he does have a scar. I have a scar on my lip that I had when I was a kid, but he has one on his forehead.
Okay.
At least that's right?
Yeah. He's got the lightning bolt.
All right. Well, that's a cooler scar than mine. Mine's just I busted my lip open on a weight bench when I was a kid. But anyway, so the time kind of finally rolled around, and it was time to go in Super Nintendo World, and we were thinking all right, we'll be here for a couple hours, shoot some content, and then head over and explore the rest of the park. we were there for probably 6.5 hours. There's so much to do in there. It's deceptive because it is a relatively tiny corner of Universal Studios Japan. It's tucked away off on the side. You have to walk past Waterworld, which by all indications was completely closed.
When you say Waterworld, you mean like the 90s movie?
Yes, there's a Waterworld like attraction, but I didn't see it open at all when I was there.
That is a fascinating addition because that movie is not well loved. I mean, I think there's a lot of people who actually like they've come to love it, but like, I mean, you remember that was like one of the biggest box office flops of the 90s.
Yeah. Well, so it goes like Jurassic Park, which is a pretty cool area. I walked through it at nighttime after we left Super Nintendo World. Jurassic Park, and then there's Waterworld, and then Super Nintendo World. And Super Nintendo World is off like way in the corner. Next one over is the Hogwarts area.
Sure.
So we walked from Hogwarts over to Super Nintendo World. Went in at our time of 1:30. Went in there, and you have to wait in line if you want to get the photo op in front of the things. We did that, and then we went over to you walk into this giant warp pipe, and it's kind of it's amazing. It's just a warp pipe sitting like on the ground, so you like walk in sideways.
Does it make a noise when you go in?
I don't think it does. But it does have like all these effects, like you're getting transported somewhere magical, like these lines of light going in like the interior. And then you
had the noise. I'm disappointed.
But you come out and you're in Peach's castle from Mario 64.
Okay,
which is really cool. It's playing the castle theme music, the song, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And then
you look over Mario.
You look over to the right, and it's Bob on Battlefield painting on the wall. You look over to the left, and it's is it called like Little Big World or something like that? Like where it's like basically you're tiny in a giant world. But anyway, so you walk past, and the painting it's like one of those, like, depending on what angle you look at it, it's a different painting.
Okay.
And it's Bowser Jr. there. Like, and then you leave, and that's actually foreshadowing because the final boss battle is Bowser Jr. Like there's actually like a storyline that you can play through. And you exit, and it is just amazing the moment you exit that castle, and you just feel like you really are transported to like Mario's Mushroom Kingdom.
That's it. That's
really
cool.
You look off to the far away, like straightaway center, and it's like basically just like it looks like a new Super Mario Brothers level. You look off to like kind of like I guess like 10 o'clock, and it's like Bowser's castle. Look over to the left, and there's like some mini games that you can participate in, including a slot machine, like the old school like slot machine mini games you can play.
Okay.
The doon doon doon
yep.
doon doon.
Hell yeah.
And then over to the
Super
right,
Mario Brothers 3, I think.
Yes,
right? Yeah.
Yes. Well, I think they've done it in the. But yeah, that was the debut.
Yeah.
And then you can go down the steps, or you can go over to the side, and like it's just so much cool stuff to see. There's shops, there's restaurants. Toad has a cafe, or it's called Canopio's Cafe because that's his Japanese name is Canopio. And I went down there, and I was like, I saw like beforehand I watched I follow an Instagrammer that's like, hey, here's like really cool stuff to do while you're in Japan. And like I love like checking because I love Japan. I've been there twice now, and he did like a thing like, hey, here's stuff to do at Universal Studios Japan, and I was like, oh, let me watch that because I'm going to Universal Studios Japan. And he said one of the ones he said was wait 3 hours at Canopio's Cafe for lunch. And I was like, well, I'm not going to be doing that. So I just had like resigned myself that I'm not going to be eating there. But I went on the Yoshi ride, which is just basically like a very, very slow moving cart. It's not like a thrill ride whatsoever. It's just basically like a little like
is it like a Magic Kingdom dark ride kind of deal?
Basically, it's like it takes you like you get a really great view of the thing. So it's like elevated. You climb up to the very top basically while you're in line.
Okay,
and then you get on the cart, and it's just a very slow, probably about 7 or 8 minute, like kind of like just like slow moving car that takes you to different viewpoints, right?
Yeah,
and then you go through a tunnel
like that at other parks. That's pretty natural.
And so I did that, and then I came out, and Alex didn't go on that ride, and he was just taking pictures around. He was taking like B-roll for like a video that we're planning on doing on the park. And I come out, and I'm like, "Hey man, I'm out. Where are you?" And he didn't get back to me immediately. I looked over, and I was like, "The line on the cafe is looking relatively short." So I went over to. I thought maybe they closed it or something like that. And I looked over at there was a woman waiting. I was like, hey, how long's the wait? She's like, oh, probably about 40 minutes. I'm like, we're in. And I jumped in line. I called him immediately. I'm like, hey, get over here. Like, get in line with me.
Yeah.
And we did that. And we ate it. We ordered a decent amount of stuff so we could include that in our video. But it was pretty tasty. We ordered it was shaped like a mushroom and like a super mushroom, but it was basically a bowl with like the two eyes. And then the head of the mushroom was like a pizza dough. And then you broke through the pizza dough and it was like a pepperoni and mushroom and cheese and tomato sauce. So like it was like a pizza bowl.
That's interesting.
It was tasty. And then we got like a steak that had like kind of like a Bowser shell over top of it that was constructed by like almost like wonton strips and like different like green veggies steamed. That was pretty tasty. And then there's one other that we got that I can't remember, but it was it was like a fish, but on the side it had a superstar shaped rice, and it was dyed yellow, so it looked like you were eating like a star. And then we got two desserts. We tried to get the peaches cake, which it looks like the cake from Mario 64.
Okay.
Or Mario Party, I think, was the first time we actually saw the cake, but then they were sold out of that. And we got it looked like basically like a Mario level, where like it was like a cake where it was like kind of like the ascent to a flagpole, basically. And then there was another one that, again, I'm drawing a blank. I can bring up a picture, but yeah, it was really decent food. I don't want to say good food. It was decent food. It was good food for a theme park.
Sure.
But it was a cool experience, and you're inside like basically like a Toad house eating it. They have a lot of cool stuff to look at while you're in there. That you could play a mini game where like there was like a giant present and a tiny present, like in a Toad house in Mario 3, and you have to choose which one. And we had like the little like armbands that let you do all these mini games.
Yeah, you're showing me now. He's holding it up. You can't see this, but he's got it's a little.
I got a Mario one. My coworker got a Yoshi one.
If you haven't already on your probably your IG or something.
Yeah. So it was a really great time. Then I was like, all right, I want to do the Mario Kart ride. That's what's in Bowser's Castle.
Obviously.
That may have been one of the coolest rides I've ever been on in my life.
Really?
So it's like
one
of
the rides guy.
I like rides. I'm not a huge roller coaster guy. I do like a good moderate sized roller coaster, and I love the feeling of like speed. I just don't like the feeling in my stomach when there's like a huge drop, right?
Okay.
So, but like I'll ride like a roller coaster. I'll ride like the looping roller coasters, the corkscrew roller coasters, but like the big drops just kind of make me feel a little sick.
So you wouldn't go on like Kingda Ka in Six Flags over here, which is the one that basically you just like go up like super, super high and then you just go back down and like that's the whole ride.
No.
But like when I say super high, I'm talking about they launch you like 120 miles an hour and you go up like 400 feet or something like that. I forget how high. It was one of the tallest ones when they made it, at least.
That would not be my jam.
Okay.
But yeah, like have you ever you've been to Disney before, right?
Sure. Yeah. Well, we just went in February. Yeah.
That's right. Have you ridden Test Drive at Epcot?
Yeah. I took my son on it.
That's my jam right there. That's one of my favorite rides ever.
So this is like right in that vein, right?
Because it really feels in that vein. Only there's no like conclusion where like you're going like 60 miles an hour around a track. But I like that sense of speed, right? Like I really love the sense of speed, but like it doesn't have any real drops. But there's also a cool like preceding part of that where you're going through like an obstacle course on this cart, right?
Right.
So that's more akin to what this Mario Kart ride is.
Okay.
But like it was so cool the way they set it up, because it really feels, again, the whole thing about this amusement park is you feel like you're in a Nintendo or a Mario game. So you walk through like the queue is you're walking through Bowser's castle. There's like a giant statue of Bowser when you first walk in. They're playing the Bowser music, and part of it is like they're manufacturing those little Koopa, the robot Koopas. There's all these posters, like kind of like propaganda posters about like trying to beat Mario and all these things. And then you get down there and it's like you have to choose a side. Are you team Bowser or are you team Mario? And I don't think they really, it was basically like they told me where to go. I didn't get a chance to choose which one I was on because like, they're just trying to get people through the line as fast as possible. But I sat down and, there's 4 people in a cart and it brings everybody up and like, it's almost it's like a slow ride up And then I'm like, where are they taking me here? And so basically they give you like a Mario hat and you clap a visor in it, and it's an AR ride. So so you're in a ride actually, and it's taking you around things. It's jerking you around like you're riding in a cart, but you're seeing other riders in your visor. And it's really cool. So like I saw like Bowser flying by, and the whole thing is like you have on your steering wheel, it's telling you which way to turn the wheel, and you get extra points for turning the wheel the right way. So it feels like you're driving. And then also your steering wheel has triggers on them, so you can fire shells at opposing characters.
Sure.
So you're trying to like get more points. Of course, I won because it gives you a score at the end. I came in first, but it's really cool the way like you ride up slowly to the starting line, and it plays like the big like da 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 da, and it's like, oh my god, this is like, it's so cool to feel like you're actually in like a Mario Kart race.
That is really cool.
And then it does
I like how that sounds.
It does the countdown, the da da da, and you feel like the burnout almost, and your car's like kind of fishtailing a little bit, and then you shoot off. And you're riding through all
time it right. That's the thing. If you don't time it right, then you're gonna fish.
You spin out, yeah. So you go through all these different biomes. There was like a hot one. There was an ice level where you're sliding all around. It was just an unbelievably cool ride. And then it's one of the cooler rides I've ever been on, combined with like the technology and like the affection that I have for like the Mario Kart series, and and then it spits you right out, of course, into a gift shop.
Well, that's how all of them work. So.
Yes, I mean that's what the Spider-Man ride did too. And I was
every single ride that they make today, they're smart enough to know that we want to try and get your money while we can.
Yeah,
and you're feeling really good. You're like, oh man, this is awesome. Yeah, I'm gonna spend some money.
Yeah. The Yoshi ride, I don't think dumped me into a gift shop, because I think they realized people were like, all right, that was a fun, pleasant little ride.
That's a different thing. Exactly.
The Mario Kart ride, I was riding the high.
And in Magic Kingdom, they have one called the People Mover, and that's one where it's similar to that. It's what you're describing to me anyway. I don't know if that's accurate or not, but that sounds like what you described to me.
I mean, I think it's a little more eventful than the People Mover.
Okay.
Because like, you are seeing a bunch of really cool sights. Like it takes you into a tunnel, and there's like Kamek flying around, and Baby Mario and Baby Peach riding on Yoshi and everything.
Hey, don't knock it. The People Mover was popular with my kids.
I would say
stuff there too. You do see stuff.
I would say it's more like the golf ball for at Epcot. It's more like that, I would say.
It's oh goodness, I forget the name of the ride. It's not obviously
it's not the golf ball.
I know what you mean, but like,
everybody knows
just there. I should know the name, but I don't. I forgot. It was I think it's something with communication. I remember.
I have no idea. It's just always important. The golf ball to me.
I know. Same.
But so anyway, we did Super Nintendo World. Then there's a bunch of mini games you can take part in. There's one where it's like you have to time it just right at the POW block with your wrist, and it sets it off, and it goes up, and you collect a coin, or you collect a key, and you have to collect 3 of the 5 keys around the park. Maybe there's 6, I don't know, but you have to collect 3 of them to get into this boss battle against Bowser Jr. And that's the final boss of the park. And so one of them,
concept.
It is, and you have to go around, and you can do like so that one where it's like there's a shell going back and forth. You have to time it just right so the POW blocks go off and shoot up the shell to get the star, or the key. And then there's another one where it's you have to rotate this wheel really fast to make this Goomba who's balancing on a little like wheel. You have to make him fall over, and then that gives you the key. And then there's another one where you have to like turn off alarm clocks so the giant sleeping piranha plant doesn't wake up. And then there's another one where you have to you have to put together the key coin before a giant bomb goes off.
Ooh.
There's some really cool stuff. And by the way, you're tiny in that scenario. Like you enter the underground level, and of course it's playing the do and you shrink down to mini Mario. And what it does is you feel the sensation of it. Like you feel everything around you slowly getting bigger as you walk. So you actually feel the sensation of getting smaller, which is really incredibly designed. Then you get in there, and of course everything's giant. The blocks are like 5 times the size they are outside in the park. And of course there are blocks all around the park where you can punch them. It makes it ring, ring, ring. and all those coins get added to your account, and basically you just want to end the day with collecting as many stamps as you can, which is just for doing stuff. And then once we got in there, it was time to do the boss battle for Bowser Jr., and it takes you through like his little like area, I don't know, like a workshop or something, where it has all of his equipment, and then you get in there and you're in like a lava area, and you actually have, you remember iToy on PlayStation?
Yeah.
Where it basically tracks your like your silhouette, and you can play different games. It's basically like that, where like everybody is standing. There's like 8 of us, I think, lined up, and we have to like a bullet bill will come across. You have to duck underneath of it, or like fireballs will come in. You have to deflect them back at Bowser Jr., or you can throw shells, and you if like a power up will float up above you, you have to jump up to get it. It was a really cool experience. We took out Bowser Jr. I did the slot machine. It was just a really fun time. I bought a couple of things, and maybe one of the coolest amusement parks I've ever been in.
That's really cool. I definitely would want to go to this if I get to Japan at some point. I'll get to Japan at some point. Well, who knows? But
they're doing one in Hollywood that opens next year.
Oh, well, it makes it easier then.
But it is a different one. I think it's different. Like I've seen like the in construction pictures, and they're doing like a desert area instead of like the Beanpole Hill. Okay. I think it's called. And then it's apparently a little bit smaller. There's also like a legitimate Bowser's Castle where it looks like a different Bowser's Castle. Like this one was like, you enter into Bowser's mouth. Okay. To like it's like a castle shaped like Bowser. This one looks like the traditional like just like castle, and then they're doing one
swamps and everything in there.
Oh yeah. And then they're doing one in Florida in that Universal Studios, I think, opening in 2025.
Okay, yeah, I'm almost definitely not getting to Universal Studios before then anyway. So this might be like
I want to do all of them, and I already did the hardest one to do.
Sure.
So I'm gonna definitely do Hollywood when it opens next year, and then I'll go to Florida when 2025 rolls around.
And then you can rank them.
I will.
Definitive ranking.
Definitive ranking, which is usually a top 5. We'll do a top 3.
it's the only way to do it.
It is, and then I'll just be like, I guess Disney World.
Yeah, why not?
By the way, didn't use Chris Pratt's voice when Mario came out. They used Charles Martinet.
Oh, well, I would assume so.
Well, it's Universal, so you don't know.
I guess that's true.
They could have replaced him by Chris Pratt's, because he walks out and say they do photo ops. They're really smart about the photo ops. It's not like, oh, well, Mario and Luigi are only going to be appearing at this time. They say, all right, Mario and Luigi are going to take a quick break and they'll be right back. Very obviously, they're swapping the people. Like they have other people back there dressed as Mario and Luigi. So we see the Mario and Luigi walk inside, and they go behind this door. No longer than 30 seconds later, another Mario and Luigi walk out, and they do like their exit. The Mario and Luigi do their exit, and everybody cheers. And then different Mario and Luigi walk out and do their little entrance, and the photo line continues to move. It's very smart the way they did that. Instead of having just be like, there's only defined times because our actors need breaks. Like, no, it's like we just have a rotating cast of actors, basically.
That's smart. Very cool, man. I'm jealous. I'm glad you had a good trip. I'm glad you're home. I'm glad you beat Bowser, right?
Yes, we gave Bowser Jr. His comeuppance.
Right, Bowser Jr. Sorry,
Bowser Jr. No, it's fine.
That is what I meant.
I did beat Bowser in Mario Kart though, so that counts.
There you go. I mean, as long as they're getting their comeuppance, I think the Koopa Clan needs to get taken down a peg or two.
Exactly, and we ate a nice meal.
There you go. Everybody wins. That's awesome. That's awesome. Do they have pasta too? Because
they do. We did not get pasta though.
Too.
We didn't get the pasta. We got other
they
stuff.
Have it. I just want to know.
Oh, by the way, it wasn't a fish. I think it was chicken that was with the superstar rice.
Okay, gotcha.
But yeah, it was pretty tasty. And then here's the cool thing about Universal Studios Japan: they don't mess around when it comes to Halloween.
Okay.
When the sun goes down, that park turns into a horror show.
Okay. That's like Six Flags out here, Great Adventure. We
walked into Jurassic Park, and there were like all like these like ancient Egyptian themed monsters walking around, and we're like, oh, what is this? And like there's like the music has faded, and it's just like creepy like scratching sounds playing all over the park, and they're screaming. And I think they rotate the themes.
Hold on a minute here. Now I'm actually starting to take issue. You're telling me that you go into the Jurassic Park area and they get ancient Egyptian monsters. I'm sorry. It's right here, guys. Just make it dinosaurs. Just make it scary dinosaurs. Freak me out. Make me think that the park like closed, the power went out. Do something nuts there, because it's baked in. It's baked in, right?
It is, but I think they just do different themes for different days, and because then we walked over to the Hollywood section, and it was I think the theme was called Gothic Killer Cuties, and it was just a bunch of women dressed in like really, really like disturbing kind of like outfits.
Sure.
And like walking around, and like they had like spikes shooting out of them and everything. So that had nothing to do with Hollywood.
No, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. But like if you want to go for like, I feel like there's one way to do the Jurassic Park world.
Sure.
Right? It's that one way. So I'm almost like, I'm triggered by this right now. Like I was fine until all of a sudden you're like, wait, no, they didn't just have people go around and like try to freak you out as like dinosaurs popping out and stuff. Like do that. It's right there. Please hire me. I'm gonna set this right.
And then they had Waterworld where they just drown you.
Waterboard you. Yeah.
No, but then you go to New York, and it was like Circus Freaks, I think, was the theme.
Okay.
So they had like clowns and
that's on theme. There's a bunch of circus freaks in New York.
We were as we were leaving, because we were like, all right, let's go, because we were at Nintendo World for like 6.5 hours. We thought it was only going to be a couple hour engagement, but no, we did everything we could in there. And as we were leaving, it was like a werewolf and like a giant guy on stilts who was like walking around, almost reminded me of like a Resident Evil monster, which is fitting because there's a Resident Evil attraction that, of course, I didn't have time to go to because we spent so much time at Nintendo World.
Sure.
The only other ride I went on aside from those two in Nintendo World was the Spider-Man ride, which was pretty cool as well.
You know what they could have done too in the Super Mario World is they could have had like, Mario type of stuff for like when it gets dark and scary and Halloween, but like not cutesy. I mean, like go past into like surreal, like effed up, but they probably wouldn't do that. I'm sure the
Mario World
allow it.
Nintendo World remains very, very cheerful at all hours of the day.
But
though it would,
well, if they're going to do that, at least then at night make like a bunch of booze come out. Like
that, I was just thinking that. Yeah,
that. Like,
by the way,
that's on brand. I
almost bought a shirt at the gift store because they have a bunch of like character shirts, and one of them, like, so Boo's name in Japan is Teresa.
Teresa, sure.
I
didn't know that.
Bullet Bill's name is Killer.
Oh,
and
I mean, yeah,
you can see why they changed that name for the Western localization. But
it's murderer.
It's just hilarious that like there's a shirt with Bullet Bill on it, and it just says Killer across the front. I was like, oh, that's like kind of like a really gangster shirt.
You should have bought that shirt.
If there was a Twitter account that's like shirts that go hard, that would be on it because it looked so cool. And I was like,
started it.
The problem is that it is so expensive to buy stuff there. It's cheaper than like an American theme park. I will say that. All the food, all the merchandise. I was looking at it, I'm like, okay, if I was buying this at like a US theme park, this would be like probably $20 more than what this is.
Yeah.
And like it was
good, quote unquote affordable, but still not.
Yes. Yeah, it was still more expensive than I was willing to. I did buy a t-shirt and a reusable like tote bag. And my coworker bought a watch. Unique. So yeah, okay. There was a different shirt that I saw on the way out, and I was like, oh, I wish I didn't buy that t-shirt because I want that one. It was like a long sleeve sweatshirt that just said like Super Nintendo World across the front, whereas I bought like the full Super Nintendo World like key art basically on a t-shirt. It's a cool shirt, but like I would have preferred, I think, the kind of minimalism of the sweatshirt. But they have amazing merchandise, and I wish I like had more pocket change to spend while I was over there. But
you wish you had money?
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah, it would have been nice. But yeah, so that was Super Nintendo World and Universal Studios Japan. And of course awesome. there's all kinds of great like gaming culture stuff over in Japan. Like we went to Super Potato. I got I have something to show you.
Oh yeah. This is going to be fun. I'm going to try to describe this as best I can. Maybe he'll help out too. We have it's a Ninja Turtles is it a graphic novel? It's a graphic novel.
It is volume 1 of the Eastman, Waltz, and Duncan run that is running, I believe, right now.
Yeah, I think so.
But it's like kind of like the throwback art style. All of them have the red bandanas. But I saw it and I was like, I need
in
to get
Japanese,
this.
of course.
Yeah,
yeah.
I believe this is. Oh wait, so this is the 1984 comics.
Yeah.
Okay, so never mind. It's not the run that's going right now, but it's like the modernized version. Like they colorized it and everything.
Sure,
that's but really cool. This was 20 or originally it was 2,000 yen, which is under normal circumstances about $20.
Okay,
and but the yen is so weak right now compared to the dollar that this is probably about $16 instead of $20.
Okay.
This was 600 yen. It was on sale. 600 yen, which is normally about $6, but under the current conversion, it's probably about $4.50.
Okay. Not bad.
Yeah. And also I saw various
TMN. Of course, you can't read that.
No, but it's a cool thing to have, right?
It's cool. Of course, it's cool.
I mean, I can't play any of
display.
I can't play any of the retro video games that I bought either.
That's true.
I bought Donkey Kong Country, which is known as Super Donkey Kong over in Japan.
I didn't know that. That makes sense.
All right, let me just bring them up here. So, Mario 64.
Yep.
All the box arts in Japan are so much cooler, by the way, especially like up until like the GameCube era when they all started unifying. Both versions of Final Fantasy X, the Japanese version, the international version.
Okay.
Super Mario World.
Neat. Oh, the Super Mario World's really cool.
I actually have this exact design on a shirt, which is thrilling audio for everybody.
This is riveting. We might even have to move away from this, unfortunately, just because no one can really see it. But this is awesome. Oh, Street Fighter 2
Street Fighter 2 Turbo, because I was like
this.
That was like really the first fighting game I really played, and I was like, I got to get that.
Sure. And obviously, we're dipping away from audio conversations here and things for our listeners. Let's bring it back. I think, you know what, we've not that this hasn't been awesome. I've really enjoyed listening to your trip, but we do have some other things we want to get to. So let's move the show along to a couple more gaming things before we get over to UFC, because there was a big UFC weekend too as well. But let's go over to a little bit more. I want to know what have you had time to play, because obviously it's been 2 weeks even since we even talked about this.
Yeah, so I haven't had a ton of time to play stuff. I mean, the flight there, I did dip my toe into a few games. I actually spent a decent amount of time in a mobile game that I did not expect to do. Like I don't know, like something about mobile games just feel great on a plane. I think it's because I already have my phone out. I'm already listening to a podcast or music or whatever. Might as well play something on that same device.
Sure, I get it.
You know, normally I play Marvel Strike Force, but that requires a pretty good Wi-Fi connection, which planes often do not have. I do
not typically.
I do usually buy the Wi-Fi, but it's still not usually good enough for a game that requires a constant online connection.
Sure.
So I downloaded Outlanders, which is a city builder, but it's like you have like these very strict objectives. And basically you're starting from like a very tiny village and you slowly build up using the resources that you have, the natural resources. You have to collect them. So like you have like the cycle is like, you know, you build like a lumberjack's shack and they'll go around and collect all the trees within the range of that shack. And then you can use that wood to build like more things. Like, all right, I built the lumberjack shack is built. I'm going to build a forager hut, which is going to allow them to go around and collect all the vegetation in the range of theirs. That'll make it so my people can remain fed. And then like, all right, I have all this wood from this lumberjack shack. Now I need to build like a sawmill, and that'll allow me to cut the wood into stuff so I can build more advanced buildings. And then you can have like a quarry, which will collect stones. And then that'll allow you, once you start stockpiling all this stuff, you can start building more and more advanced things. Like, all right, now I have a windmill that'll allow me to generate power, and it'll allow me to create like advanced ingredients so I can make better food for my people and keep them fed. And you have to balance all this stuff. It's like, oh no, I don't have any more wood, and we don't have any more like trees or anything like that. So what do we do now? It's like, oh, we either have to break down some stuff, but do we have any people who are going to do that? Because without wood, we can't have people foraging for food. So there are fail states that you can get to. Like I had like a population of like 85 people or something like that. And I guess we flew too close to the sun because we ran out of food and everybody starved to death. So
ooh, brutal.
And once that happens, like it's like a snowball effect, like an avalanche, where it's like, all right, well, I'm completely screwed now because like 70% of my population is starved to death. It's like, do we continue? Like, it's unsustainable now because like, you know, all this stuff can't continue to operate without people to operate them. It's just a really cool thing to like kind of try to do this balancing act of keeping all these plates spinning and monitoring like, oh no, this entire area has been completely farmed to vegetation. Let's remove all the workers from that, move them to another forager hut, and then let this vegetation repopulate, and then we'll move everybody back there. And then you can once you start getting like more advanced stuff, you can create a farm where you can plant like different seeds, and that makes it so that you have a better stream of food coming in. And then you can make a bakery where like you can take like the grain that you harvest and turn it into like better food. And once you start having like wheat and barley, you can make a pub where people can go and drink, and that'll make people happier, so they work more.
Okay.
It's just a very cool city builder. I think it's coming to Steam Q1 of next year, but right now it's only on Apple Arcade, which is why I was able to play it, because it's not like a microtransaction or ad supported thing. It's supported through Apple Arcade, so that means there's no microtransactions, no ads, no requirement for an online connection.
Nice.
And I poured probably 4 or 5 hours into it over the course of my 2 flights on the way to Japan.
That's cool, man.
Yeah, so that's one of the things I've been playing. I downloaded Marvel Snap, which is a different game to Marvel Strike Force. It is a card-based game. It's like there's 3 lanes, and you have to try to make sure that you capture 2 of the locations. So each lane is a location. So it's like, all right, this one flips over. It's New York City. That has some boosts to certain characters or certain circumstances. And then there's one over here. All right, it's the Hydra base, and that gives certain boosts to certain characters. And each card has a power or an effect. So like Iron Man will give like boosts to every other character in his location, or other characters, I forget like what they do, but like they'll like give boosts to adjacent characters. So like at different locations, they'll give boosts to them. So every card has a power. You need to capture 2 of the 3 locations, meaning your opponent will put down, like say their total power at that location is 8. You need to have 9 or higher on 2 of those 3 locations. And certain cards they require more energy to play. I'm very early on in it because I just started playing 2 days ago, but I'm having a really good time with it. I'm not a big like deck builder guy because like I get frustrated with like kind of like there's always just one good way to win in a lot of these ways. But think of it as Gwent meets Hearthstone.
I did like Gwent. I never played Hearthstone.
It's really fun so far. Of course, I don't know how like reliant on like pay to win it's going to become, but I'm having a good time so far, and I recommend people check it out if they have a love for like card based games or Marvel. Yeah, and you upgrade your cards as you go. So like they visually upgrade, and that tells you that like you've unlocked more objectives. So it starts out just a 2D card, right? Then it's like, all right, the next one is they burst out of the frame, and then the next one is they're 3D images on the card now, and you slowly make the card cooler looking, which I like a lot as you level them up.
Okay.
Then I've been playing Persona 5 on Switch, which is a game we've been waiting a long time to come to this platform. It plays very well. It's one of my favorite RPGs of all time. Not a whole lot to say about that. Go check out all the reviews from 2017 if you want to know what that game's all about. I guess 2020 because it's Persona 5 Royal.
But on the whole, it's a faithful transfer.
Yes, I didn't have any problems with the first few hours that I played, which, is a very small. I think you get about 15 hours in before you finish the tutorials. So it's a long game. So I'm having a good time with it. Of course I am. It's one of my favorite RPGs of all time. And then Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope is finally out now. So I've been playing a little bit of that.
How is that? Because I'm interested.
Very, very good. It's a really strong strategy title. I like it better than the first one so far. I'm probably about 5 hours deep right now. And yeah, they add some really thoughtful additions. The grid-based system is gone. Now it's more freeform. They just give you like kind of like an outline of this is how far your character can go during this turn. And then you can go to like anywhere you want. Really, it feels better, I think, in motion.
See, I'm curious how I'm gonna feel about that because I don't know. I actually kind of liked the grid. Maybe I'm weird. I don't know if that's strange, but yeah, I did like it.
I think give it a shot because it is. I'm
not against it.
It feels better, and I like the grid too because like I love XCOM, and I think that Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle was very much like, oh, it's XCOM but Mario characters.
Sure.
And this feels a little bit less like that, but it still very much has that DNA. And there's I think the Rabbids are actually more entertaining in this one. The
Good, 'cause
Rabbids
they're
now
not interesting to me.
me neither. But now there's no more team comp requirements. So like it used to be, you needed to have one Mario character and one Rabbid character at least on each
Was
party.
that what it was? I don't even remember that.
Now you can just do whoever you want.
Okay, well that's good.
And
I don't remember that, but
there is a really good Rabbid character now named Edge, which is not a Mario character. Like all the Rabbids are Mario inspired, you know.
Okay.
This is just an original character for this game, and she's really badass. And she has
Edge, huh?
Yeah. You get her pretty early on, and yeah, very good game so far. I'm enjoying the boss battles. It encourages a lot more open world not open world, but like hub world exploration.
Okay.
And it seems like an improvement in almost every way of Mario Rabbids Kingdom Battle. So highly recommend it. I'd love to talk more about it, but I don't have the depth of play experience just yet.
No, hey, that's all right. We don't need deep reviews. Eventually, those will be out. You guys already have one out, right?
We do. I'm so out of the loop. I can bring it up right now and I can tell you what we gave it. But I know that our reviewer, Marcus Stewart, really, really enjoyed what he played by the time I had left. I had him on my podcast last week, but we recorded that early. But Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope got a 9 out of 10 on Game Informer.
That's a good one.
That is a good one. That's the highest scoring review since my Overwatch review. There's a lot of games that have come out lately. Ghostbusters Spirits Unleashed, New Tales from the Borderlands. Here's another one.
I have high expectations for the Ghostbusters one.
Well, we gave it a 7.75. It seems like it's a fine.
That's not bad.
Here's one that I know you probably want to talk a little bit about, though. Gotham Knights.
Yeah. So Gotham Knights, I was curious about this game, obviously, right? I'm a Batman guy. It's right up my alley. And I love the Arkham games, which granted, I understand this may not have been like that going in. I didn't really know what we were walking into, right? Mm-hmm. And I haven't looked as deep into it. But now as the reviews are coming out and everything, I'm realizing, okay, it's definitely a looter type of game, and which I don't always love. I've moved much further away from that. But also seeing the reviews, like, first, all I was seeing was like negative, and like hyper negative. And then I saw you guys gave it, what was it, a 7.25, right? 7.25? Yeah. I'm like, that's not bad. Maybe it's more like mixed. And then, I went over to Metacritic, and the current state of Metacritic was at 69, which is not bad. But I'm looking and I'm like,
it's actually pretty nice.
There's a bunch of reviews in progress too that don't seem to be all that glowing either. And I expect that number might not be as high then. But I don't know. I'm definitely much more let down by what I'm hearing. Like I was really hoping to be like good, and it's decidedly not good. If based on the general consensus of reviews, it's not that level.
Yeah, it seems as though like it tried to play off of what Arkham gave us. Yeah. And it fell well short. Like, this is the same studio that did Arkham Origins, which is a perfectly good game. It's probably the worst of all the Arkham games.
Sure.
But
I actually like that. It's
a pretty good game. Yeah. And this seems like they tried something new, which, all props to them for that. But It just didn't pan out in the way that I think that people who associate a Batman universe game from this company would have expected.
A lot of the things that I was seeing, like particular elements that I was seeing that I wasn't loving, is the idea that you're kind of just grinding for components, things like that to craft, and it's like I don't know if that's what I want to be doing with my time when I'm playing Batman games. Like, I know it's not Batman, but the Bat family, that Bat clan. I'm interested in playing that game more for like the story and that kind of thing, and it doesn't sound like that's much of a strength of this particular game, at least from what I'm seeing around. You do your own research. I would encourage that. Read the Game Informer review, read your favorite outlets review, what have you. But yeah, I was leaning toward. Well, I was not leaning toward, but I was definitely curious about whether I was going to maybe want to get this one, maybe play it with friends. And it sounds like one of the strengths of it is play with friends, right? Like, if you have a buddy to play with, you might actually have a ton of fun. But I don't tend to get to play at the same time as my friends all the time. I have very weird hours. So now I'm almost like, I don't know. Maybe I'll just wait until it's like on sale or something like that. Like maybe cheap or something. Especially, these type of games, I almost feel like you need, it's like a double-edged sword, right? If you don't jump in Like, do you get behind? I don't know. Not sure if that's what this is or not. But then there's also like, maybe you let it develop and find out what it is, you know? So I don't know. I'm always torn with these type of things comes. That's why I'm in general, I just stay away from looters. So
Yeah, it sounds
yeah.
like the characters all play well, except Red Hood kind of sucks, which
Yeah,
is a bummer.
I'm not interested in playing as Red Hood, to be perfectly honest. Like, he
Nightwing
uses
is my
the
boy.
guns. I'd rather use them. You know, I
Robin.
definitely would any of those other three. Like, sorry, just if I want to play as a guy who's going to run around using guns and stuff. Like, I've got a billion other games I can do that for. I want to play Batman Family. I want to play the ones who aren't using the firearms.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and but it's still like the option to. I like all the characters to play well is what I'm saying. But like,
well, I mean, I would agree if you're going to put them in there, you better play well. But yeah,
I still think I'm going to check it out. Like, there's a lot of games coming out. Like, I'm excited for Sonic Frontiers, excited for Pokemon, excited for God of War. Call of Duty comes out this week. It's there's a lot to distract me from this game, unfortunately.
Yeah, and the nature of your business is you get access to a lot of these games. I would have to purchase them, and I'm much more like probably most of our listeners, which are not industry people, and I am not leaning toward spending my money on this one.
Yeah, I would probably agree with that. Like, if you're looking for one of like these big games that's coming out like this month, next month, this might be one that like you wait until maybe a Black Friday sale. Even if you're at your most interested, like you're a big Batman fan, Scott.
Sure.
Like, I think a Black Friday deal is likely for this game given the reception.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to see. Look, if they put it out there, it's probably going to be like, it's going to have to be steeply discounted. It's probably not going to hit the number that I would pay on even a Black Friday this year, but who knows? Maybe at some point, if I saw it for $20 and like I was talking to my buddy and I'm like, hey, we got a little time, let's play this time, then maybe. But yeah, I'm in a different boat too. If I had more natural hours, like daytime hours, might be a different story. I could probably figure it out, you know. But even still, I don't know that I would jump on it now anyway.
If I had to guess, I would say the steepest Black Friday discount you'd get on this game would be 40.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah, so, I mean, I've studied those numbers over the years too, because with me, it's really key. And when we get close to Black Friday, we're gonna have to talk about some like Black Friday strategies or something like that.
Yes,
that'd be fun.
So, Scott, before we move on from gaming, because we have a huge UFC event to talk about, what have you been playing?
Okay, yeah. So it's been 2 weeks, right? So the last time I think I spoke, I was just started playing God of War for my 4th playthrough. This time in New Game Plus, give me God of War, the highest difficulty. My goal was to run all the way through the Valkyries, which is easily the hardest part of the game. It's technically end game. You can do it at any time. Well, not at any time, but you can do it before you finish the game. And I consider that to be the hardest challenge in the game.
Yeah.
Well, I have moved all the way through and gotten to Sigrun, who is the final Valkyrie. And I have to tell you, this has been quite an undertaking. It's been one of the biggest challenges I've ever kind of had to go through as far as that. You know, they're tough. I have high-end gear. I'll show you. I'll share a quick little anecdote, though. So I was playing through most of the game using the New Game Plus version of the Ares armor, right?
Okay.
Which is one of the best armor sets in the game. So I'm playing through as that. It's really balanced. It hits hard, but it's really balanced too. So like you can take a little bit more punishment than you could with, let's say a more squishy armor set, right? So I'm using that, and I get to the Valkyries, and I'm like, man, I just can't do it. Like I'm kind of hitting a wall here. I'm trying to get through. This is on the first Valkyrie, who I can't remember which one I tackled first, but I'm getting like halfway down. I'm like, it's just not working. Like, maybe I should play around with my armor sets a little bit. So I switched it up. I switched to the Zeus armor, which is, it's like all offense, little defense on it. So pretty much anything that hits you against a Valkyrie is going to kill you in this, but you hit with a much bigger hammer. And I go out there, literally first run through, smashed her with no damage. It was just perfect.
Nice.
I couldn't believe it. I was just like, why didn't I do this sooner? I had much more of a challenge later on with different Valkyries. They have different strategies. I've been playing this one at this point for probably an hour. So like the fact that I switched it up and immediately did that, I don't think that speaks to it being OP. I think it speaks to the fact that, okay, I figured it out and now I have the means to actually beat it too, because I hit certain walls with other Valkyries too. Going through Muspelheim, if you remember,
God, It's been 4 years since I played God of War.
It's like the challenge modes, right? So like it's kind of the challenge world. Like God of War has always had those like challenges,
Yeah.
but they built them in directly into the world in this game, which was smart. And it's in Muspelheim, so I go through that. That was pretty challenging. You definitely wanted to switch up your armor sets here and there, but now I'm at Sigrun. I've only tried her a couple times because like I just got to her before the weekend, and so it was all like UFC and everything. So it's been a challenge, but I think I can do it. I've been watching some videos too, a little bit of strategy, kind of knowing, okay, maybe this is the timing on some of these dodges and these type of things. I like to get over the hump with these things. So
you have much more patience than I do. Are you a From Software fan? I forget if we've talked about this.
I don't play the From Software
shocks
games.
me, given how much you are into like these challenges. Like I don't have the patience for From Software games. I think that's what it is for me. Like I've been thinking a lot about it where like there's somebody I follow on Twitter who was talking about speed running. Okay. And like, not enough people appreciate the art of speedrunning. It's like I appreciate the hell out of it.
I appreciate it.
I just don't ever have the patience to learn like the intricacies of all right, well, if I do this, it's gonna like let me go like 0.7 seconds faster through this world.
I don't have that in me too. I think that's a very niche world there, right? Like I think there's probably a sizable population. I'm not sure how big it is, but there's probably a lot of people out there who like really like the challenge aspect of gaming, right? Mm-hmm. But like speed running is like an entirely invented world of video game challenge, and oftentimes involves exploiting breaks in the game that were not built in, right?
Yeah.
Something like this, or something like like again, From Software type of games, they're trying to challenge you and you're trying to meet that challenge. So it's a little different. I understand.
Scott, I think it's time we move on to probably the biggest news out of this entire weekend, UFC 280.
Well, before we do, I got one more game that I've been playing,
what?
sir. I dipped back into my my collection here, and I played Def Jam Vendetta.
That game is basically the official game of the Ground Pwned podcast.
It kind of is, especially Def Jam Fight for New York, I believe, even more so. But I went to Vendetta first. And I was just like, man, I just want to play this again. And so I went back and I played through the story mode. I actually just beat that last night.
You playing on PS2 or what?
GameCube.
Okay.
So
all right.
Through my Wii.
Oh, okay. So that makes sense.
Yeah. So I never owned a GameCube, but I bought a GameCube controller. I can play it through my Wii. So, because I've got that version, and it was a lot of fun going back and playing that. I really enjoyed although I will say this, there's a lot of parts of it that have aged and maybe don't fly with today's sensibilities, especially in the way we, let's say, treat women and view women and that whole thing, because you're kind of just part of the story mode as you're going through and you're like getting girlfriends and, boy. They're having cat fights over you. So you control one of them.
Yikes.
Let's say that's aged poorly, but the game itself still super fun. That I considered that one Vendetta more like a wrestling game, but once it switched over to Fight for New York, which I'm going to play through probably next, is it's much more of like a fighting game. Like it's because it's obviously the word fight is in there, but I think it moves away from wrestling. You're not really in rings anymore. You're in like, I think there is like a version of an octagon in there, right? So and there's different fighting styles and things that you could actually create a fighter in that game, as opposed to in Vendetta you could not. They just had some
really. I don't know why. I forgot that you couldn't create a fighter in Vendetta.
And not only that, you can't actually create a fighter in Fight for New York except for through your story mode. Like you can't just like go to create a fighter.
That's right.
You actually have to build them, which I still think is really annoying. But whatever, it's like a knock on a how old game. It came out when I was in college, so it's almost 20 years old.
Vendetta was 2003.
There you go. And Fight for New York, I think it was 05, 04, 05.
I was just looking up how much a copy of Vendetta goes for on eBay.
Yeah, it was.
And it depends on like what the condition is. Like a non-working disc is like $5, which just like basically, hey, I want a coaster that says Def Jam Fight Vendetta.
Okay, that's a decoration.
It looks like just the disc alone is like $20. Okay. In the case, looks like it's about $35. If it's sealed, I don't know if this is just an outlier or if it is something that like is the going rate. A sealed, perfect condition copy of Def Jam Vendetta was listed for $1,100.
Now, is that is that listed or is that sold? Because obviously I can it's like I can sue you for like $3 trillion, but will that judgment be passed, you know? What's the actual value?
It says lowest price of brand new is $1,100 on eBay. Open box looks like it's $52 shipped.
Okay.
Pre-owned with no like case, just in like a jewel case, is $34 shipped.
Okay.
So yeah, it's like looking like in that price range. But
I would rather play Fight for New York anyway. But I mean, I went back because I wanted to play Vendetta first. I was like, you know, I should play the bones of it before I go back to the next one. So, but that was fun. I love those games. I really wish they would bring it back, and it doesn't have to be like, I really just want that type of game back. It doesn't have to be Def Jam even, you know, like I don't know that Lil Baby and Travis Scott is necessarily the way we want to take our rap themed fighting game again. If they want to go back and get like some of the old Def Jam crew, that's different. I don't even know who signed to Def Jam anymore. I'm very out of touch. Right. But I just love that guy. I think they should make a UFC game just like they made Def Jam Fight for New York.
That would be cool.
That's what I want so badly. So like when we're making our fighting game, you know, in our last episode with the draft and everything like that, obviously we made it more with like a Street Fighter-ish slant to it. But man, I really want an arcade style fighter.
You know that it would have to be like
New York with UFC.
It would have to be a crossover game with all like the dumb celebrities that the UFC has like a relationship with. Like it's going to be like
anyway.
It's going to be like all right, half of them are going to be UFC fighters, the other half's going to be like Nelk Boys and Hasbulla and
whatever. I don't care. I would accept that because
it would be like the Mario Rabbids situation where it's like, all right, I don't want to play with any of the Rabbids. I just want to play with the Mario characters, and it's like every once in a while you're going to watch like Francis Ngannou uppercut Nelk Boy into oblivion.
But maybe I don't have fun doing that. Like maybe I'd be like, yeah, I could just have them knock out. I don't have anything against Hasbulla, but I also don't I don't care about Hasbulla. Like everybody talks about Hasbulla. You do not see me on social media talking about Hasbulla because I don't care.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I don't
good for this man. I'm glad he's taking advantage and you know living the capitalistic dream, making money off of whatever it is that he's doing. And all that, but I just don't care, and I still think it's weird that everyone holds him like a baby.
Yes,
it's just strange. He's a man.
It's a strange situation. Isn't he like 20 years old?
I don't know how old he is, but he's not my children, and I can barely hold my children like that anymore. So, but anyway, so yeah, he was. Hasbulla, of course, was at the fights this weekend. Let's move to the fights here, and we're not going to talk about Hasbulla anymore, but let's talk about Islam Makhachev, who was holding Hasbulla and the belt that he won last Hasbulla. But yeah, man, Islam looked just awesome. Like there was all this talk of like, does he deserve the shot? Has he beaten enough people? That was always like the knock that anybody would put out there on him. Doesn't matter. He went out there and he looked like the better fighter than the champion. And I don't care. Charles Oliveira was the champion. We all know that. The champion had a name, and the name was Charles Oliveira. It's not anymore, but it was.
It was. And yeah, I also agreed with all the critics that said, you know, Islam Makhachev does not have a top 5 win, but it's not his fault. Like, you know, Beneil Dariush fell out, and other fighters had fallen out en route to that.
Sure.
And he did what he did. He took out anybody who was standing in front of him in relatively easy fashion. Over the past several fights, you know, he did lose one early on in the UFC run, but it's that's a distant memory at this point. And
long ago.
You know, they put out they put the champion. I don't care what the official rankings said.
Right.
Charles Oliveira was the champion, and he is arguably one of the most skilled fighters in the lightweight division. I mean, in the history of the lightweight division, he's just such a well-rounded fighter. He has the most submissions in UFC history. And Islam Makhachev just ran through him. It was barely competitive. There were some cool like grappling exchanges that happened early on, but outside of that, it was one-way traffic. Islam just dominated him, and then of course
he looked good standing too. Like he knocked Charles down.
Yeah, that was what started the end.
It was a good counter to what Charles was doing. He got a little reckless there,
Well,
and he just counters him with a right hand, and that's that. I don't know how rocked Charles was, but like it definitely sent him down there. And someone with his jiu-jitsu would think he might be able to typically at least fend him off a little bit, because it ended up in half guard, and it was like already like very quickly into that defending the arm triangle, but he couldn't keep Makhachev out of trying to like, pass and obviously lock in. And once he passed, it was already over. Like Charles is tapping quick. He's not a quitter. He just understands jiu-jitsu. He knew he was God. Yeah.
He's not going to do, I mean, and again, Justin Gaethje, my favorite fighter, he's not going to do what Gaethje does and just like let himself go to sleep. He's like, nope, I know I'm not going to get out of this. I'm just going to live to fight another day.
Not everyone has to do that. Like that's not a quitter's mentality. Like you're tapping because you acknowledge that, okay, you got me. This is just because you pass out, it doesn't prove anything to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
I don't
just because somebody breaks your arm. That doesn't mean that you are, any less of a quitter. It's just
I would think most people who are calling people quitters that do that type of thing have never actually been choked out or even rolled in jiu-jitsu. So I'm gonna say,
getting choked
is
it's an unpleasant experience.
It's not great. I don't love it, but like, I like jiu-jitsu. I miss it. I'm going to go back to it. I'm working my way back to try and find a time to get to the gym. And I'm getting back to jiu-jitsu soon.
And it just, again, wowed by how one-sided this was, because I thought like, all right, well, this is almost like the replacement fight that we never got, Khabib versus Tony. This almost felt like the closest thing we could get to that, right? Where we've got a guy who, if you play around in his guard too much, he might make you pay for it with an arm bar or some sort of triangle choke. And then you have a very dominant top control wrestler, very much like Khabib, and Charles kind of has a ground game, at least a guard game, kind of similar to what Tony could have presented. So this was almost like our Tony versus Khabib, and we saw how it went, unfortunately.
I mean,
look, I'm reaching a little bit.
I think we're stretching, but I get what you're saying.
But we saw some interesting grappling exchanges early on.
No, without question.
Like, we saw like, all right, well, Charles can threaten from the bottom, and Islam can survive those threats. And it's like, all right, cool. I'd love 5 rounds of this. We did not get 5 rounds of it because we saw what happened with Islam. But yeah, my takeaway from this fight is he is a force to be reckoned with. We knew this going in. He's a force to be reckoned with. But I thought Charles was going to put up a much better fight than that. And it's kind of scary that he couldn't, because I think very, very highly of Charles Oliveira. I think he's one of the most skilled fighters we've seen in that division. And Islam just made him look like he was an entire tier below him.
So I'm going to pose a question to you, and then I'm going to answer it first, because I'll give you the chance to catch up and pull up the UFC rankings while you do. But let's say any fighter in the top 10, and I'm not saying that they would be the next fighter to challenge. They wouldn't get the next title shot. And I'll allow you to include Alexander Volkanovski in there too, since it sounds like he will more or less be treated like a top lightweight too. Who among the UFC's lightweights, who would give Makhachev the biggest problem right now?
All right,
I'm going to say, because I'll answer first just to allow you to catch up.
Go ahead.
I am going to say, and this is a weird one for me, because I don't know. I still am surprised that I'm picking him. Michael Chandler.
Okay, I could see that.
The thinking there is that, at least he's a little bit, he's got some wrestling there, so maybe he can at least kind of keep it in that world. He doesn't have to worry too much about the takedown in theory, and that allows him a little bit more, opportunity to try and like land a power shot, because he hits hard. He does hit hard.
He does.
And I think that's kind of where you want to be able to try and beat Islam is if you've got the striking and it's got to be power striking. You're not gonna nickel and dime him over the course of 5 rounds. Eventually, if you give him 5 rounds, he's probably gonna get it down in that world. And he'll probably make you pay. But up there, Michael Chandler, I'm giving him 7 minutes. 7 minutes. It's kind of like the and I don't think he would gas this bad, but I'm thinking like Rumble Johnson style, like. He's got a real good shot to beat you inside those 7 minutes. And after that, I just don't know that it's going to work out for him. But it's not because he'll gas the same way. I think it's just, all right, then Makhachev's going to be able to kind of have more energy to get it done. That's my thinking.
I think that's probably a pretty good answer. The only other answer I could think of, I mean, again, Islam Makhachev is a different fighter than Khabib, but he employs a very similar style, maybe a little bit more stand-up focused than Khabib, but
I think it's more submission focused, actually.
That's fair. Less ground and pound, more submission.
Yeah.
But he's still, again, it's that dominant top control wrestling that
serviceable striking that supports your ability to try and get it down to the mat where you can do what you please.
And we've seen how that style has fared against Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje. So I think we have to remove them from the equation.
Possibly.
Charles Oliveira, we saw it already. Michael Chandler's, who you brought up, who I think I probably agree with that. I think that's probably the pick.
I would go an alternate anyway.
I would like to maybe throw out Beneil Dariush.
Okay.
I think that's an interesting style matchup. I think Beneil is better on the feet than a lot of people give him credit for. He's also a very good grappler. And I'd like to see how he fares. Also, I think he's earned it. Again, earning and actually getting in the UFC are two extremely different things.
Sure.
And we heard him in the.
And we're not even talking about necessarily the earning and part. We're really just saying, like, okay, if we could pick anybody to be like, all right, let's see what you got. Like, who we think has the best chance of knocking him down now, or not knocking him down off of his perch now.
Yeah, taking that belt away from him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Dariush is a solid answer.
Dariush,
I can see that.
Fiziev would be interesting until it's not a stand-up battle anymore, and then it's one-way traffic, I think.
So that's the problem. I think I see Fiziev, not that he doesn't have power, but I see him being a little bit more, try to pick him apart and try to set things up later that may just not work out, and I think he might get taken down before that. That's why I lean away from him.
But honestly, I think Alexander Volkanovski is maybe the third most interesting out of the pool of candidates right now. I think that he has not serviceable. He's a very good wrestler. But I think against Islam, it's going to be pretty much one-way traffic in the grappling. But he is a very intelligent stand-up fighter. And I think that he might find a way to at least keep it on his terms for long enough to do something. And I think that his power, it's either going to be amplified by not having to do that weight cut, or it's not going to transfer at all. Like we've seen 145 fighters go up to 155, Max Holloway being the perfect example, where if you don't actually make it a change in body composition, your power just doesn't transfer. And there's just such a big disparity that even a former 145er like Dustin Poirier just completely overpowers the guy coming up. That could be the case, but I think Volkanovski is a sturdy enough guy that
the guy used to compete in rugby at 200 pounds.
Yeah.
So this is someone who had strength and had girth on him before. He just trimmed his body down for MMA. So I could see it.
I'm just glad that we worked the word girth into our podcast this
Always.
week.
We should make that like an Easter egg every week before we slide girth in there, and everyone hey, I saw it. It'll be like the Leonardo DiCaprio gif.
I don't know. Our conversation's been a little flaccid this week.
Boo.
So, yeah. Well, if you listen to Joe Rogan, Alexander Volkanovski used to weigh 433 pounds or whatever he says.
I do not listen to Joe Rogan.
Well, you do in the commentary.
Nah, that's true. But not even this week.
Not this week. Yeah, it's an overseas. It's an overseas thing.
This was in Abu Dhabi, and the other championship fight, of course, that was at UFC 280 was Aljamain Sterling, who. Look, I don't care about the whole Dillashaw thing in terms of what I'm about to say. I thought Aljamain Sterling looked fantastic.
Yes.
Because that man, when he got it down to the ground, this is not the same fighter that we saw going against Peter Yan, where he was trying to work for the choke and kind of get back there and out grapple, right? I think he learned a lesson from that. And I'm going to take even just like I said this on my other podcast, I'm taking 1% of the credit for pointing him in the direction, because I spoke with him. I actually had a conversation with this man. This isn't me just tweeting something, right? I spoke with him, and I did explain, listen, those 10-8s, the judges now, they really want damage. If you want to get your 10-8 score, because everyone was all up in arms. Did he get a 10-8? Did he not get a 10-8 in that last fight, right? This is how you get the 10-8, by just pounding them with ground and pound. And this is what he did. He went out there and he smashed TJ. I get it. TJ is not defending himself because his dislocated arm, right? Which he knew going in was going to get dislocated. But he goes in there and he is just laying down the hammer
He really was.
This was a big Aljo down there, and if he is going to put that into his game going forward, because he can get it down, he's very good at getting the fight to the floor a lot of the time. If he can get it down there and start smeshing, that's going to change, I think, the perception of what he is as a championship fighter to a lot of people who unfortunately, he still has a lot of haters for whatever reason. This unfortunate situation didn't help him. But
here's the thing. He has maybe the weirdest title run of any UFC champion ever. So, won the belt off of disqualification, which, again, none of this stuff is his fault. Won the belt off of disqualification because Petr Yan threw an illegal knee. His defense, which a lot of people just consider like it was a rematch, but a lot of people treated that like a vacant belt.
Did not consider him to be the champion at that point.
But
I get it. I get the case. But.
I gave it to Aljo in my scorecard for the rematch. A lot of people gave it to Jan. A lot of people.
I gave it to Aljo.
But so controversial decision for some people.
Sure.
And then he beats TJ Dillashaw in a fight in which he came in very injured and very compromised,
which we didn't know.
Which again,
there was a lot of writing on the wall there that did the UFC know?
None of this stuff. Well,
probably to some degree.
I was listening to the post-fight show that MMA Fighting did. Okay. And they're like, isn't it funny that the UFC just outlawed betting on fights for people involved in camps when this is
super weird, right?
This is very obvious that a lot of people probably know that TJ Dillashaw has a very compromised shoulder.
Yeah. The timing of that is uncanny. And look, maybe there's other factors. Maybe it really wasn't related, but there's optics here, and we're not blind. So
I mean, if people on his team bet heavily on Aljo, I think that's the equivalent of like insider trading.
Yes, it is. Absolutely.
It's like if Bruce Buffer went out and did one of those bets. Is that something that
would have even happened, though? I don't know that, but shoot,
I mean, you could bet it and then not tell anybody, I guess. I don't know how betting works where you have to make it public or whatever, but.
I mean, I think you have to sign up, and especially when you're doing it in markets, they have records of what you do. Yeah. I think because it's through it's legal in the government and everything like that, right? I don't know. I'm just assuming. So
I have no idea, but I don't think this should take anything away from Aljo. This is out of his control.
I agree.
I think that it should take away from TJ Dillashaw because this is a fight that should have been somebody else in there. And he's like, oh, I didn't want to wait another year to get this title shot. It's like. Well, now you made it so you're probably never going to get another title shot again, and you had 0% chance of winning this fight with that arm.
I'm not the one who posed this kind of possibility here, so I won't take credit for that. But I will say this. Somebody pointed out, well, what if, because he's only fought once in 4 years, maybe he needed money?
That's possible.
There's not a whole lot of
coming off a 2-year suspension.
He was suspended for 2 years. He had no capacity to make money doing his profession because of his own actions. It's his own grave that he dug, but he still has a family. He's got to feed them. There, he has a business, right? Maybe that business needed some money. I don't know. Everyone needs money to support themselves, and if he's not getting it, this is what you do. I mean, you take a fight. I don't begrudge him. Even if that wasn't the case, I get it. You have the opportunity, but especially if it was a money related thing, are you going to say no? Are you you, Brian? Would you, if you needed the money and you knew you had no chance of winning and you knew you were compromised and everything like that, are you be like, it's just not right. I think I'm going to wait.
I mean, are you asking me, if I needed the money, would I get into the cage with Aljamain Sterling and let him beat me senseless for 7.5 minutes?
If you were as skilled as TJ Dillashaw.
I mean, I guess maybe I don't know. I feel like it just, and he acknowledged it. It's just shitty to the rest of the division.
It is, and no question. I'm not defending that, but I guess the motivation, if there is a money concern in there, and this is just somebody thinking out loud, right? But it makes a lot of sense when you really think about it. It's not like these guys make a ton of money, even when they're in championship fights. But still, this would be a good influx of cash that would probably be necessary, especially when they don't even have their own health care.
Yeah, I'm just glad that we gave this to TJ Dillashaw instead of Jose Aldo.
I know. But hey, look,
garbage.
If we trot Jose Aldo out there, the Jose Aldo that looked that way against, Merab Dvalishvili, who's a teammate of Aljamain Sterling, and this man is the champion, Merab is not. How that goes in the gym, I don't know, but I just don't know that it would have. we're not going to get the storybook ending for Jose Aldo. It doesn't matter if he got that shot or not. It just wasn't happening. He's not there anymore. He's just not.
I don't know. I think that it would have been a much more compelling fight. It would have been a much more compelling fight than
by
this. By
default, it would have been not only a more compelling fight from a promotional standpoint, because I mean, you, me, and everybody else pretty much likes Jose Aldo a lot better than TJ Dillashaw these days. As far as, you know, not that TJ's a bad guy, but like, I mean, we all know what he did. He cheated. He acknowledged it. It wasn't right. We don't want to see it in our sport.
And he's played the heel multiple times knowingly. It's not like he's like completely blind to the fact that he is like, you know, kind of sometimes playing it up.
Sure, no, he knows what he is. It's the bet he made, and I think he's sleeping it in. I think he understands it. But yeah, I would rather have seen Jose Aldo there. But again, you put him in there, he's not beating Aljamain Sterling, especially that version of Aljamain Sterling. That was an awesome Aljamain Sterling in there.
It was, yeah. That's probably the best Aljo's ever looked. But again, it's very easy to look that good when you're against a one-armed fighter.
Yeah, but you know, someone who had two arms and looked good, but you know, there was obviously questions about whether he won this one was Sean O'Malley.
No, so here's my thing.
Okay, we're going to this.
Here's my thing, okay? Like, I think there's no way you can give that to O'Malley. It's a close fight.
There's zero chance that you can give that fight to Sean O'Malley.
I think it's closer to a 30-27 Jan than it is a 29-28 O'Malley. I scored at 29-28 for Jan, and I think we're closer to a full sweep of the cards for Jan than we are for being able to give that to O'Malley.
I disagree.
I think that
let me preface that by saying I scored it the same way you did, 29-28 for Jan.
I think that I know that the criteria for grappling has changed. I understand that. Mm-hmm. I just think that Jan, there was not a big enough discrepancy on the feet, even when O'Malley got the better of him, to discount the differences in like grappling. I think that O'Malley looked great. He looked better than I thought he was going to look, but I don't think he won that fight by any stretch.
I think the better performance overall came from Peter Yan, but I think based on the way you score things, sometimes things just eke out like that, right? Like first round, it's a close round. When I'm watching that live, I actually thought it was a lot closer than I think a lot of people did, but I did score it for Yan.
I scored that one for O'Malley, honestly.
You did. You scored round one. So it's round 3 that you think.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So, man, if that's the case, then I feel like it should be even easier for you to get to Sean O'Malley winning, because I think round 3 is not. It's definitely a close round. It's a close round. I'm not saying it wasn't close. Round 2 is the only round that's like super definitive, right? Because it was won by Jan. And I think when that happens, a lot of people start to be like, well, who had the best performance overall? It's like, well, yeah, he had the bigger round. But every round is a 9, except for when it's like barely an 8. That's the problem. If we had more degrees, then we could start getting into situations where it's like, okay, maybe we can weigh that middle round better. And maybe we can weigh that first round less so because it's a closer round. But we don't have that. We don't have the nuance to our scoring. And I am a heavy proponent of us getting more nuance.
Yeah.
But as it stands right now, the way it works with the judging, man, I'm telling you, it's not unreasonable for them to get to 29-28 O'Malley. I don't think so at all.
I think that O'Malley lost this fight. Hear me out, though.
Sure.
I still think he should be elevated to the elite of the division because we saw how he looked.
He proved himself as at least on the same level. No question. No question. I don't think anybody could question that.
Yeah, he put on. I mean, that's the best fight on this card, easily.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I assume it won fight of the night. I don't always look at the bonuses.
We got bonuses here.
Yeah, it had to. Yeah.
So
Makhachev and Bilal Muhammad, another great performance. Day one performance of the night.
By the way, Muhammad looked amazing.
He did.
God, that's the best he's ever looked. The best Aljo's ever looked. The best Muhammad's ever looked.
Yeah.
But the rest of this card, honestly,
time too. Yeah, the rest of the card was a lot of. It was all right. It was all right.
I was actually. Yeah. I was not feeling great about buying this pay-per-view, to be honest.
Which is funny because everyone was building up as like the event of the year. I never bought into that. I really didn't.
I did.
It was like it looked good. It looked good to me. Like we didn't get the chance to preview it on our show, but as I was looking, I was like, this looks good. But everyone was like, man, event of the year, and I never thought that. I really didn't.
I thought it was going to be the best card of the year. I thought that Islam Makhachev and Charles Oliveira, skill for skill, looked like just a banger of a fight. Aljamain Sterling versus TJ Dillashaw. If we didn't know about TJ's injury at the time, I thought that was going to be a very competitive fight. And then
I thought it'd be I thought a lot of these were competitive. Like if you were asking me to like make picks, which I don't always love to do, like I think the only one that I actually felt good about out of the top 6 picking a winner would have been Jan, and obviously it didn't go that way necessarily on the cards. No matter how you thought, it goes down officially as a win for O'Malley. It doesn't matter what we think, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought this was a good card on paper, like a very good card, but also it was like top 6. And then after that, it was like, I mean, how much are you looking forward to some of these fights under the top 6? Maybe you wanted to see, Makayev or
Makayev
like
for sure.
But like Makayev is also, it was a match that everybody thought was like he was just going to run through. So like, how much are you looking forward to that?
I mean, it
ended up being better than I think it would have been because it was a little more competitive, but not that much.
That's the way they need to build up these young like killers, right? They need to book them against some guys that they need to run through. That's what they did with O'Malley for the longest time.
Sure.
And I think that Makayev has just the sky's the limit for that guy.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think that's UFC 280. I mean,
we definitely want to look ahead real quick before we kind of shut down here because I actually like this this fight night coming up this weekend with Vegas number 63. Good old number 63. Calvin Kattar and Arnold Allen is a really good fight night main event. Honestly, I really like this. This is the quality that I'm looking for a UFC fight night main event from what I expected them to be able to do. Right, this is the top end of what I expect them to be able to do, especially for one that's not on like Fox or something like that. But this, I mean, if they put this on Fox, I think this is a good fight too. Or not Fox,
ESPN,
ABC. I'm living 5 years ago, right? I think it's a really good one, man.
It's weird. It's only a 9-fight card according to Tapology right now.
I think there's more bouts on there that aren't put on, if I'm not mistaken. But I'm going to pull it up real quick from where I think I might be able to see. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm counting 12 here.
Okay.
Over on, I'm just on Wikipedia, but like this is probably updated enough. I think I've got 12 fights here. Does it have Mark O. Madsen, excuse me? Or is it Mark O. Madsen?
We are.
I always like to say it.
The Irishman himself, Mark O. Madsen.
I think it could be Marco Madsen. What if it's just one word, Marco Madsen?
Well, all right, yes,
because they only say Marco Madsen when they're talking about it. They don't just say Madsen. It's very weird.
It's so weird, yeah. So, all right, I don't see Marco Madsen anywhere.
He's going against Grant Dawson. This was.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
So yeah, that fell apart because he was supposed to fight. Madsen was supposed to fight Drakkar Klose. Klose had to pull out. Tore his ACL, which sucks.
Yikes!
Just recently. So, but no, I mean, I think this. I like that fight. But let's kind of just start here with the main event here. Let's focus in on Calvin Kattar and Arnold Allen because we really like this fight and we just don't have a ton of time. So, rate this one on our 5-star scale. What is your interest in Kattar versus Allen?
I'm gonna give it a 4. I don't think it's quite on the level of anticipation as like a Yair Rodriguez versus Brian Ortega, but it's definitely up there. One of the better fight night main events that we have talked about on this podcast since we started it.
I'm way more interested in it. I'm going to go all the way up to a 4.5. I think this is a fantastic fight, and I think realistically the winner of this one could easily be a featherweight title challenger. There's high stakes. There's high potential for this to be a fascinating striking battle, I think. I really like this one. I'm up to a 4.5. I think it's fantastic. And it's granted. So let's say Alexander Volkanovski gets the next title shot at lightweight, right? Let's say they do that fight and they have to hold up the division a little bit. What if the winner of this fight ends up fighting, let's say Yair Rodriguez, right? Or if Yair goes against Brian Ortega, for an interim belt. I think there's it's reasonable depending on how long it would take to get it going for them to actually have, because you don't want to hold up featherweight. Like this is not the division to hold up.
It's the third best division in the UFC.
I would be, and I'm not an interim title fight kind of guy. I don't love them, but this actually would make some sense because it's entirely possible that we won't actually get Alexander Volkanovski to come back down to 45. He wants to if he does win 55, but
so it sounds like
manifest.
If they do this Volkanovski Islam fight, it sounds like it might happen in February in Perth,
Australia. Yeah.
What is the timeline for Brian Ortega's return? Do we know that?
I don't know
because we might have on our hands a mini tournament. We might have Kattar and Allen on one side of the bracket, and Yair Rodriguez versus Brian Ortega on the other side of the tournament, if the timeline works out for his return, and then those
Brian
two
Ortega
fight.
hurt his shoulder too. I mean, this is
Well, that's what I'm saying.
These
like,
shoulder injuries are tough.
If his return is times out with that, otherwise you just give the winner of this Yair Rodriguez for the interim title.
Yeah, and that's why I think I'm interested in it from a sporting standpoint, and I also think it's going to be a fascinating fight. So I'm up to 4.5. The rest of the card, I like this too. I think this is a really solid fight night. If they had said, I think it probably needs a little bit more star power for them to put this on, like I said, ABC or something like that. Like, it just needs a little bit more star power. But in terms of like actually fascinating fights, and even deep into the prelim card, I really like this. I like Madsen versus Dawson. Max Griffin versus Tim Means is going to be terrific. I think it's going to be great. Dustin Jacoby, who's knocking people out left and right at light heavyweight. I think he's going to be great against Khalil Roundtree, right, like you mentioned. Middleweight, I like Phil Haas anytime he's on the card. Going against Roman Dolidze, that's good. Phil Haas is from the general area where I live right now, actually. So Jersey represent. And Chase Hooper. People love Chase Hooper.
Yeah, it's a good
He's
card.
got Steve Garcia. I like this too. What's your interest in this card?
I would give it a 3.5. I think
3.5 is fair.
It's a very good card. I like you said. I maybe if Edson Barbosa versus Ilya Tuporia stayed together, this would be a 4.
Okay.
I think, like you said, it's missing just a tiny touch of star power to boost us up to like the elite level of a fight night card.
Yeah. No, I think that's absolutely that's spot on. You're right there. But yeah, I'm gonna stick with you. I'm gonna say a 4.5 on this one too. So my
3.5.
Just a 3.5. So what did I say?
Said
7.5, 9.5, 34.5. No, I'm with you. I'm united on 3.5 here, and so my average ends up being just a little higher than yours in terms of my interest. But I think we both agree that if you're not the type who's going to watch every fight night, that's fine. I hope we can guide your North Star and say this is one to watch, as opposed to maybe some of the other ones where hopefully we're guiding you away from, and maybe skip it and kind of find out later.
By the way, can we just talk about the absolute cluster that is UFC naming convention? So this is UFC Fight Night.
Yes, please.
UFC Fight Night Cater versus Allen. Okay, cool. Also known as UFC Fight Night 213. Also known as UFC on ESPN Plus 71. Also known as UFC Vegas 63. What the hell are we doing here?
It's the stupidest thing ever. Oh my
God.
It's
the dumbest shit.
Just identify a brand that you want to stick with. And then because the hashtag is UFC Vegas 63. Then they don't care about UFC on ESPN Plus 71. That was even funnier. That's definitely my favorite.
Absolutely madness. Like, it's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. But yeah, that's all. That's all.
Accurate. I'm with you. I think probably all our listeners will agree. Imagine someone sitting there being like, I think this is terrific, and we should do more of this.
I'm going to be like, hey, man, did you watch UFC on ESPN Plus 71 over the weekend? Nah, man, I watched UFC Fight Night Cater versus Allen. Oh, man. Okay. Sorry, I guess we can't talk about it.
When is UFC on ESPN Plus 71, by the way?
I have no idea. Because
I can't wait.
I always have to check what the hashtag is every single time I do. If they want us to hashtag it, they should put it up on the screen 100% of the time. It flickers on every once in a while. They should keep it up there because the numbers are impossible to keep track of.
Agreed. But I will say it's gotten a lot easier for me to keep track of the number because I recently bought a whiteboard. When I say recently, I mean probably before the summer.
That's smart.
But I bought a whiteboard. And I have an upcoming. I mean to use most of it, but I don't. And so I have this little column that's upcoming events. So there's UFC pay-per-views is in one box, UFC fight nights in another, Bellator events in another, PFL, and then I've got an other that's kind of whatever might else be on the radar that I should kind of be aware of. And so I keep the 3 most upcoming UFC fight nights on there. So right now I can tell you it's this weekend UFC Vegas 63. The next is UFC Vegas 64.
What?
And then, yeah.
How did that happen?
What do you mean? What do you mean how'd that
happen? From 63 to 64? That doesn't make any sense.
What?
I'm just giving you crap. It's very obvious. That's what I'm saying.
There we go. I was getting very confused. And then on the 19th, which is the week after the pay-per-view here in New York, that is UFC Vegas. What do you think?
65.
Yes! Yeah, ding, 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 ding.
How did I guess that?
I imagine. And honestly, I don't even hate that convention. At least we can kind of keep track of it. It's just
but just don't get rid of all the other ones.
It just highlights how kind of ludicrous it is that we have so many events at Vegas. I don't know.
But it's not like this is the 63rd event to ever take place in Vegas.
And it is not. You're right. It's really just ever since they started doing the Apex. So yeah. But yeah, we it would make sense in here.
It would make sense if it was UFC Apex 63.
Yeah, I was actually hashtagging it, or I don't know if I was hashtagging it, but I was calling it in my notes for my other show. I would call it UFC Apex.
That makes sense.
That number. And then all of a sudden they kept doing Vegas. They kept force feeding Vegas. So I'm like, all right, fine, it's Vegas.
But yeah,
we got what we got.
I think we did what we needed to do.
We set out to and accomplished our goals today. Hope you enjoyed the show, especially listening to your vacation. I think was terrific. But if you like what you heard, we probably won't be talking about more vacations next time. But make sure you subscribe, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you are listening to our dulcet tones. And while you are at it, would you kindly subscribe to our social handles at Brian Pichet and at Scott_Fontana on Twitter and Instagram.
You can always reach us with questions, feedback, topics you'd like to hear about, or just letting us know what you're hyped for at groundandpwnedpod@gmail.com or at groundandpwned on Twitter. Until next time, enjoy the fights, enjoy the games. We will talk to you next week.